We've been doing some knife videos lately, so I thought I'd dig into my pile of knives. And since I live out here in Arizona, we're able to have automatic opener switchblades here. And I thought I'd show you sort of my progression from the early days to what I carry now. I threw this one in here just because I had it out. But this is a gravity knife, an old German gravity knife. And when I was a kid, I had a real one of these, at least one that was, allegedly from World War II or something. And I used to call this my switchblade because where I came from couldn't have switchblades, but this was a, war relic type of thing. So that was my first switchblade, at least my first play switchblade when I was a kid. Then once I moved out here to Arizona, where switchblades are okay, of course they're at every gun show, so this is probably the first one I bought, I don't know, millions of years ago it seems like. And it's almost a toy. It's got kind of a cheap lock here, so that if you have the lock on, the button won't work, and if you have the lock off, the button works. And this one, it just says 440 stainless, and then roastery or something. So I suggest these are probably kits that someone put together. At least they feel like it. At least they weren't real. Didn't spend a lot of time assembling these. But it's a sort of the Italian stiletto style switchblade, and was real cheap. I know that I probably didn't pay more than $10 for the cheap one. Now this one claims to be made in Italy. It says made in Italy, and I don't know, there's probably no way to really tell in the video, but this one feels really solid. This one doesn't have any wiggle, any loose parts at all. The materials are just stronger instead of just being folded over metal. This one looks like it was hammered. This just seems like a nicer version of this one, and this one cost a bit more. It wasn't huge expensive. I think it might have been $50 or something, but definitely it was worth it to me to buy one that was a little more quality. The lock actually works. It stays on when you put it on. I wasn't real happy about the color, but I was seeing mostly garbage, and when I found this decent one, I went with the red just because it was the only one I could get. They open very quickly, and you better have your finger out of the way because they do they are kind of sharp. Now for some reason it kind of stuck on me there, but the way this Italian stiletto type works is, again, you want to make sure your fingers are clear. It comes out very quickly, and then it's a very long stiletto type blade, sharpened on just the one side, but the shape of the blade there, you can see this is definitely meant for poking. It was useful though as a knife, and you can see I either scraped it up or did a poor attempt sharpening. I really don't even recall anymore, but this one is fairly sharp right now. It says stainless, and well, I can't read what it says above it. CDG Co. Italy stainless. So again, it says Italy, so I'm assuming it's from Italy. And they just got the spring there inside the handles and the big button. And the way you unlock them is to just kind of push down on the front thing there, and that breaks the lock in back. You can see it pushing up the lock for us. And when it opens, the peg on the back of the blade here comes up and falls into that hole. And then when you pull the release there, it pushes the spring up high enough that the peg can come back through and close. And as you close at the very end there, you hear that crunch. That's the spring being collapsed again, or compressed again. So this is my nicer Italian stiletto. This guy is another $10 one. It says stainless, doesn't even say China, but let's just all assume it's China or Pakistan or something. Very huge, very thick knife, but it has a decent pocket clip, and I like the fact that I could just replace it with Phillips screws there. This one I bought when I was doing maintenance work for some restaurants, and I needed a utility knife, and it was just super handy to have this little one. It was actually, being so kind of big and clunky, it was easy to grab in my pocket. The way that the button is it's not recessed, but it's not extruded out from the side, so it never opened accidentally on me, even when I'd have change or something in my pocket. But typically I did keep this one clipped to the outside of my pocket, so it was handy. And I put this little bit of cotton cord on this little loop lanyard thing it came with to be able to grab it real easily. It's right-handed for sure. It works in the left hand, of course, but it's a lot easier in your right hand where it's right there for your thumb. And it's got a fairly handy, it's a real quick blade, and it's a very handy little shape there. Now I didn't want to ruin this one because it is so cheap. Like, as it kind of cost me $10. You can just see the play there. It's not a very expensive knife, so I didn't use this for everything, but it was a nice little knife for cutting a piece of vinyl hose or for, just picking something or whatever. It was a nice little handy, sharp little poking knife. So anyway, I carried this one for a little while as a work knife. And then the next one is the Smith & Wesson, and I've had real hit or miss with Smith & Wesson as far as their knives go. Really like their revolvers, really like their pistols now, the M&P line, and I like their ARs, but their knives, I've got a real love-hate with them. I've got some Smith & Wesson knives I can show you that have just been there and done that, and then I've got ones like this that I barely even got to carry and the clip broke off on me, so just real hit or miss with them. The reason I like this one, it was very much like my older one that I had in a similar style, but this one had the added benefit of being a switchblade, so I really like that. I like a Tonto blade, and this one has a fairly Tonto-like blade on it. You can see though, it doesn't have much use. I really hated this part. I just thought that was weird, having that empty, voided skeletonized thing there. I just don't like that at all. Sure, it's a little bit comfortable, but I think it'd be even better without it, or if they just filled it in and did a little bit different shape. I really just didn't like that, and sometimes looks are enough to bother you from buying a knife or using a knife, and that's what it was in this case. It wasn't very expensive. I'm just going to show that as I close the last bit of the blade there, that's when the spring compresses, like most switchblades. But it wasn't real expensive, but again, the clip broke. Not quite immediately when I got it home, but I definitely didn't wear this very much or use it very much before that clip broke, and it was just dedicated to the safe as kind of a neat switchblade. What I did go to though is the Boker Magnums. These are the AK-47 or the AK-74 knives, and I really like them. I'm an AK-47 fan, and even though these are made in Taiwan, they're Boker, and I do like the company. I think the styling is pretty neat. It's supposed to look like an AK-74 bayonet. It doesn't look exactly like one, but anyway, it's comfortable. It's a good utility knife. It's a good work knife. The only thing I didn't like about this is the stupid Magnum name on there. I'm not a big fan of writing stuff on my gear. So I did use this one. You can see it's got quite a bit of wear. But at some point, these things are like $35 at gun shows. I decided to throw down another $35 and get this one that just didn't have such obnoxious writing. This one says Optomat Kalashnikov 74, and then something design, and then Magnum. So this one I just thought was a little more subtle, a little cooler. I live out in the desert, so the sort of tan color was a little nicer, and I wore this one for many, many years. The clip was substantial, worked all the time. I don't remember ever having to think about the clip. It just always worked well, rode well in the pocket. I gave it that much 550 cord to be able to pull from my pocket easily. I think it does have a lock on the back here. I never needed it the way the button is. I just never needed the lock. It's a little loose, but it doesn't fall into my way. I don't remember it being a nuisance really, although I always sort of suspected it would be. Anyway, real dependable, real nice knife, easy to keep sharp. I'm a fan of the half serrations, so it worked well for me. You can tell from the blade that this one got quite a bit of work out. But at some point I was sick of having $35 knives, and I decided to take a step up, and I will mention that this one is with the case that the Boker knives come in. I did buy this one soon after having this one because I wanted to get rid of that Magnum name, and this is again one that says just Automat Kalashnikov 74, but I don't know if you noticed there the serial number is 0005, and I didn't buy that intentionally, but when I got it home and I looked at that serial number a couple of times, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to use this one. Enough of a collector where for me this one's going to sit on the shelf with my bayonets and stuff and just be an early model of that particular series or whatever, and that's when I bought the tan one. But anyhow, I decided to go up from the $35 knives. Not that there's anything wrong with them, I just was ready for a more substantial knife already, and I researched for a while, and Benchmade is one of my favorite companies, and I'd met a guy at a range. I was out at a shooting event, and he had just without thinking brought out his auto axis and used it to do some cutting and put it away, and I said, hey, can I take a look at that? and ever since then I've been hooked. And this is the Presidio 5000 auto axis from Benchmade. So it's a very easy to use, very strong. It's their black series, so it's basically military police rated. It's meant to be used. It's not just for looking at. And aluminum scales, very substantial, heavy. You can use it from either side. It's got the axis lock, but because of the auto, I can't close it like an axis. But definitely the best switchblade I've ever used. My favorite of the switchblades. But again, we're in a state where that's not a big deal. Anybody can have a switchblade or an assisted opening. There's no more stabbings here that I'm aware of. I don't think having a switchblade makes anyone more violent than having a fork makes you more hungry. But figured I'd take a minute there, or maybe 10 minutes, to show you some of my knives from my 20 years or so in Arizona.